I'm about to show you the easiest and fail-proof method to making the tastiest and fluffiest sardine bread at home. Trust me, if you've never made bread before, this video is definitely for you because it will help you. My name is Ehi and you're welcome to my kitchen. When making bread, the first thing I do is proof my yeast. To do this, I like to make use of some warm milk. You can always make use of warm water instead. Some yeast and then sugar. Now the sugar helps the yeast to activate. You want to mix this up thoroughly. Cover up and allow it to sit for about 5 minutes. I'll talk about the do's and don'ts of this process later. Whilst the yeast is proofing, I'm going to go ahead to measure out all of my dry ingredients, including some all-purpose flour, some sugar, salt, cinnamon powder, and some milk flavor. Now the list and measurements of all ingredients used will be in the caption as usual, so you can check it out much later. The milk flavor here is very optional, but I find that it actually helps to elevate the flavor and taste of the bread whenever I use it. Now this is the brand that I use, but I know that there are other brands in the market, so you can decide to get it if you wished to use it. Once you've measured out all of the dry ingredients, you want to give this a very quick mix to ensure that everything combines, and then set it aside. At this time, our yeast would have been done proofing, and as you can see, it has some foam over the top. That is how you know that your yeast is good and ready to use. Now if you are using instant yeast, you can decide to skip this part, but you can also try to do this to ensure that your yeast is good so that you don't end up with bad bread. Again, when you are doing this, please pay attention to the type of water you are to use. Warm milk or warm water. Please do not use hot water. Hot water will kill the yeast immediately. Now at this point, I proceeded to add in my egg, and then I'm adding in my sardine oil. Now this again is optional, but I find that when you do this, it actually elevates the taste of the bread, so I try not to skip it. After this, you want to give this a very quick and gentle mix. Note that you are not beating this, you are just trying to mix it up till everything combines. Once we are done prepping all of our ingredients, then we can proceed to the process. Now I'm making use of my stand mixer for this, but if you don't have a stand mixer, not to worry, you can always make use of your hands, and I'll explain that much later. So into my stand mixer, I added in the wet ingredients that we just mixed, and then I'm going to be adding in my dry ingredients in batches. This is just to ensure that I'm not overloading the mixer, flour isn't spilling everywhere, and the mixing process is easier and more seamless. When using my stand mixer for this, I usually begin the process on a lower speed and then increase the speed later on. This really just helps to ensure that the flour is not spilling everywhere. Once you've kneaded for about 15 to 20 minutes, whether you are using your hands or a stand mixer, and it looks like the dough is beginning to come together, it is at that point that you want to add in your butter. As you knead, you can also check to know if your dough is properly kneaded. Now once it is this sticky and not yet stretchy, you already know that you haven't even begun the process of kneading. I like to add my butter in batches. This is just because once you add in the butter, the dough actually becomes a lot harder. So I like to just do this in stages so that I don't overwork my mixer. Now this has been kneading for an extra 15 minutes since we added in the butter, and we're just going to check to see if the dough is ready. Again, to know that your dough is ready, you want to try and stretch it out. If it tears just like it has done now, you know that your dough is not properly mixed and you want to keep mixing. I needed this for an extra 10 minutes, and as you can see, I've tried to stretch it out and there is no tear, so the dough is good and ready to go. I'm just going to proceed to oil a bowl and roll the dough into a very fine ball, and then place that in there, cover up and allow it rise for 1 hour. Now the purpose of oiling the bowl is just to ensure that your dough is not eventually sticky and it is easy to come off the bowl after your 1 hour time. After 1 hour, this is what it looks like. It has literally doubled in size, and that is what you are aiming for. You want it to double in size. So at this point, you just want to punch out all of the air bubbles and then proceed to work with your dough. At this point, kneading of the dough is no longer required. You just want to fold the dough and cut into your desired sizes or shapes. Now, to the tip I said I was going to give later when you are using your hands, please, when you are using your hands, you want to know that this is literally hard work. So you want to knead very, very well. If you are kneading with your hands, just know that you are going to be kneading for about 40 to 50 minutes for your dough to be nicely formed. Again, when you are kneading with your hands, you actually want to add your butter in very tiny batches. So I added my butter in 2 batches because I was using a stand mixer. But if you are using your hand, you probably want to add the same quantity of butter in like 5 or 6 batches, because the moment you add the butter, the dough hardens up and it becomes a lot more difficult to knead. Probably at this point you want to show your fitness skills, because kneading with your hands is definitely not for the weak. Don't mind anything that they tell you here on YouTube. It is actually a very difficult process, but trust me, you're equal to the task. After cutting into my desired sizes and folding, I like to proceed with my sardines because we are making sardine bread. Now, if this wasn't sardine bread, we can just proceed to put this into our pans and then cover up and allow it rise for an extra time. But because we're making sardine bread, we're going to proceed to fill up our breads with some sardines. Now I like to separate the oil from the actual sardine, and that's just because I like to use the oil afterwards to glaze the top of the bread. Now notice that I put one small fish inside the oil. That's just because I don't like my oil bare. I like to see some traces of fish on top of the bread when I glaze it, so I like to do this. This is literally just preference for me. You can always skip it. After that, I like to proceed to oil my pan. Now you can do this at the very beginning and just set it aside, or you can do that now. I like to use some melted butter to oil my pan, but you can make use of some cooking oil or some baking spray, whichever one actually works well. Just ensure that it is properly oiled so that your bread doesn't stick. I had to cut my bread in two different sizes and shapes just to show you how to fill in your sardines if you are making any of these shapes or sizes. Now for the long loaf, all you want to do is flatten it up, put in your sardine and then roll. This ensures that the sardine doesn't start spilling or popping out when your bread begins to bake. For the round ones, you want to form a hole in the middle, put in your sardine filling and then pinch and roll. Watch me very well. You want to roll, pinch and roll. That is literally the trick to doing this. Some people know how to do this on the flat surface and they just put it there and just roll. I don't know how to do that one, but if you know how to do that, that is totally fine. So I'm just going to show this again at close range so that you can see and learn. I really hope that that was clear and easy enough. But if you have any clarifications or questions you want to ask about this, kindly leave it in the comments and I'll be more than willing to respond to you. At this point, if you've not subscribed to my channel, please click the subscribe button and turn on post bell notifications so that you'll be notified each time I post a new video. Now once you are done with the sardine filling, you can proceed to cover up your dough once again and allow it rise for about 30 to 40 minutes. Notice that I glazed one with the sardine oil already and I did not glaze the other. That's just to show you that you can do it either way. People argue that if you glaze it first, it actually adds to the flavor. I honestly do not think that it makes any difference. To be honest, just do whatever works for you. For the glaze, I thought to quickly mention that you can make use of the sardine oil with or without the fish particles, or you can make use of some melted butter or a mixture of both like I did mine, or some egg wash, which is pretty much just egg and water. Whichever one works perfectly fine. After which, we proceed to bake our bread in our preheated oven for about 30 minutes. After about 30 minutes, this is what our bread looks like. If you are a lover of white bread, you may proceed to bake for about 20 to 25 minutes just so it doesn't brown this much. At this point, you want to glaze the bread with some melted butter for that extra shine, and then you're good to go. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share and comment. Bye.